is Trevor West. Actually, my main laptop battery died, so I'm actually MacGyvering this with my phone and this little mouse I'm going to use because I'm going to be reading a script today that I'll be posting on lifefurther.com sometime. But yeah, I know with the recent corona situation going on, the world's kind of hectic, and it's really bad in the US, so stay safe. Here on Iki Island in Japan, this is Ohama Beach. Got the I think I'm blocking it. I'm trying to look at the camera. It's like right there-ish. The moon. Pretty great view. The sun's setting. It's about 6 p.m. here. So, without further ado, let me start. So the title of this, I think I'm going to kneel down because I actually need to be able to read this. I'm going to get a little closer. Be a little story time at the beach. Oh yeah, there's the moon. I can see it now. I can do okay. So, the title of what I wrote is called The Spontaneity of It. Wham, slam, thank you, ma'am. Zen is some real good stuff. The book I've been reading recently, and actually, I just finished. Wait. Oh yeah, that was a bit of weight. Yeah, here it is. I have it. I'll show the setup. Like that my car's right over there. But yeah, here's the book. Maybe I'll make this the cover page. Or maybe I'll do a proper review of this sometime. Okay, it's called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by, I always have a problem with his name, but Chog Yam Trungpa. Good stuff. So yeah, I just finished that actually literally today right before recording this at the beach. I just had a little bit left, but that's really great. And it's kind of been, book was sort of the deal breaker for me in putting a nail in the coffin for my search for enlightenment. I've come to realize it's not really possible. To everyone searching for enlightenment or whatever else, I mean, you can stop or you cannot stop. I wrote here, just stop it. So, just stop it. I need to insert a filthy Frank. It's time to stop.
It's time to stop. It's time to stop, okay?
But yeah, because the secret is, secret time. To reach the enlightened state, you cannot seek it or desire it. One will reach a point where the only thing stopping one from becoming enlightened is the desire to become enlightened. A few weeks ago, when going to sleep, I felt like I was melting in a radiant and peaceful warmth. The thoughts flared and I thought that I might be dying. And with that, there was this awe-inspiring peace that all was well. Not just well, in fact, but perfect. It's hard to put into words, but the way it's come to be is that from this moment on, there was this sensation that no matter how many millions, billions, trillions or more, infinity, kabillion years it might take, everything's fine. Take for what? Perhaps peace, understanding, transcendent wisdom. I don't know why that gets me so much. There's a little side comment, but I think it's just because oftentimes people take things too seriously, especially when it comes to these religious or spiritual things. It's like, oh, that's taboo. You do not insult that. You know what I mean? It just has that air of like uptightness, like
Wow.
I forgot how much fun it was to make these. The main issues occurring in the world right now, the new coronavirus or any other crisis, is birthed from this disconnect, a separation placed between the perceived individual ego and the perceived external world or other. This distinction does not in fact exist, except
Are you sure about that?
illusory mind. This is where personal suffering originates, an attachment to separation, ego. This does not mean emotions disappear and one becomes an immovable stone figure. On the other hand, fear is still felt. Worrying about friends and family during the current corona situation is still felt. And in some ways, without the repression and the guilt and everything else, emotions can be expressed and perceived more clearly and expressed more directly with less focus. So the book I read, actually, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, talks about the dangers of that if you jump ahead to the part where you're opening your emotional expression before getting this more grounded sense about reality, because then your emotions, let's say, you take anger, and that could be very good for getting stuff done. You have a lot of proactive energy that just, boom, you just blow through things, right? You're doing a workout, boom, you blow through the workout. Oh, you just get it done. But obviously, if that was directed in a negative way and in the egoic sense of being stuck, stuck on someone else in the egoic game, then yeah, it could be like harming someone or something. And that's why it warns against that. In my own experience, I don't know. I mean, technically, I guess Jordan Bates could have been my group. But anyways, back to the actual script itself. So these emotions are still felt. But this is no longer identified with so closely. There's a space to realize that no matter what happens, it just is. Not good or bad, but it just is. From this space is a perfect love which welcomes all. A peace which gives effortless resolve to endure whatever suffering with grace. Because it is not that suffering disappears, but that personal suffering goes away. Emotions still stain, cold wind still cuts, and viruses still harm. Without all the baggage, sometimes emotions are felt even more potently, without repression, as mentioned before. What is different now, then, is that amidst all of this craziness is peace and still understanding. Basically, it appears I might have fallen under the bodhisattva path. Or at least it could be seen this way. Big emphasis on the good. The descriptions in the books that have been read match with the experiences experienced. And yet I don't really feel like becoming a Buddha or becoming enlightened anymore. There's no point. It's this weird spot where it's like by denying wanting to become a Buddha or wanting enlightenment, that this denial itself is proof of being stuck on the Buddha enlightenment path. No! Because make no mistake, as Jed put it, waking up from the ego is not necessarily a picnic. It's like getting hit by... I guess getting hit by the left side of your hand, but the way Jed says it is, it's like getting hit by a truck. So it's not necessarily a super desirable thing. I would ask people to send help, but there's no I and no one to ask or send help. And when it comes to this, it's quite fun though. The whole empty, full, everything seems to be widening, opening up, and perhaps closing too. It's this feeling of being like a leaf, or maybe like these little sands. You're like, ooh, oh, it's even picking up. Okay, it definitely got picked that up. Okay. It's like being a leaf, being at the whims and utter surrender to the wind and the caprices and where one blows. Then I ran for the first time in a while a few days ago. Did a 5-mile run. I actually just did a 8-mile run, 4 mile with a workout in between run today. And I did a crazy hard boxer workout that day and also today, and really wondered, well, this for that day. Today was just like flowy goey. And on that day, I really wondered if I was on such and such a path, and if my own internal struggling against the feeling of pain exercise gave proof to a continuing feeble clinging to ego. It is recognized that admitting to there being an I, ego, and or path itself might imply the thinking that there exists an I and a path. Like the gateless gate, which is in Japanese is called the Mumonseki. At the point of its opening, it is realized that there was never really any gate to begin with. Likewise, it is not that any person or I seeks to become a Buddha or Bodhisattva and then becomes it by following a path. Most teachings are ways to convince one of the simple truth. Ego is illusion. And by consequence, all things thought to be real are also illusory. Until this is experienced, though, most cannot believe this. It doesn't feel right. So one spends years and years reading, meditating, contemplating, trying so hard to do nothing, to get rid of the ego. And yet in the end, when the ego vanishes as darkness before sunlight, it's realized there was never really the ego to begin with. Just as there is no darkness, only absence of light. Take words as they are of use. Throw away what is no longer needed. The supposed enlightened one needs nothing to be. For it was realized that there is nothing to learn, nothing to do, nothing to be. In this space, all things are loved eternally. I don't know, it just sounds really cheesy though when I write it like that, but when you're trying to explain this stuff in words, you run into a few roadblocks. But it does seem more and more that the past and future are just non-real dreams. And so when this present moment ends, that's it. One such individual I've read said that many are proclaiming themselves to be enlightened, and yet most still suffer because they have not reached the true state of enlightenment. They give reference to Jesus Christ in being a genuinely enlightened individual because he suffered in a tortured way, and yet because he was enlightened, did not actually feel any suffering. This is from Your Immortal Reality by Gary R. Renard. Richard Sylvester in I Hope You Die Soon provides an interesting elaboration on the point of enlightenment and pain. As he puts it, even after enlightenment occurs, it is not that pain ceases. As biological creatures with our physio-neurological makeup, it is a consistent truth that pain exists. But rather, that personal suffering ends. This is the mental chatter and guilt and sorrow and regret that continue long after the moment of actual physical suffering ends. This is the neurotic worrying, the trembling, the fear of when one will die, how painful it will be, or how one fears some past pain occurring again in the future. This is what ends with enlightenment. Pain would end, I suppose, once the given biological body capable of perceiving pain is no longer the locus or focus, the center of conscious awareness. Yeah, gotta throw in some fancy words in there. Most call this death. But enlightenment is not possible for anyone, including myself. So there's no point in pursuing it. To dispel any doubts, I'm not enlightened and will never be. And whoever understands this might very well understand the situation. Ask the question, who am I? And observe over time what responses arise. This question will be like a key to understanding. So, when I reflect back on the workout that was done, it seems as a dream, no more relevant to the current moment than a leaf falling on the ground in some uninhabited forest, or I guess sand falling in some uninhabited beach, or some ant walking left or right, some person drinking some water, using the bathroom, whatever things happen in everyday life. It is relevant now only in giving an example of illustrating how, at any given moment, such emotions and thoughts can and likely will arise, and that itself is fine. I used to beat myself up because I used to conceive of myself as some kind of hero seeking enlightenment. I was a brave individual who was willing to delve into any dark depths of human nature. I was someone who was going to discover more about human nature than others had done before. More than Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, Jonathan Haidt, Jordan Peterson, and many other philosophers and psychologists I had read about. There was this terrible grip that bound me. There's like the shadow that seemed to lurk in my steps. And I lost myself in the world of dreams and fervently sought hidden meanings to solidify my waking life, so as to secure a sense of reality in the unconscious. I tried to justify what would be categorized as a highly taboo and ugly sexual nature within the confines of a more sanctioned, scientific, psychological perspective. It isn't simply that I desire to be dominated by the feminine character. Oh no. Get ready for this one. It is a sexual desire that reaches to the very core of human nature, to the unconscious realms, into the human need and desire for security and connection, as well as a fear and resistance to insecurity, and so a desire for security even at the cost of personal freedom or the loss of individual identity. Oh my god. Yeah, that feels like a run-on. And I guess in some ways this archetypal theme, e.g. the Great Mother, does apply to the sexuality in question. But it misses the larger point in scrambling to find solid ground in ephemeral details. The whole point of this search was not truly the dressed-up purpose of finding truth. The point was to secure an ego against social judgment by seeking social validation within a socially acceptable means of communication. Jordan Bates cuts through all this bullshit by just being like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Feels like a Bob Ross moment. You know, there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. A lot of my life feels like that. Probably other people feel similar, but there's a sort of joy and playfulness in that, in these little happy accidents and mistakes. So, nonetheless, it was, and continues to be, quite the adventure, roller coaster of emotions. I'll probably upload my senior thesis and relevant dream records and other writings I did over the 2 or more year period this search was conducted. This is done with the intent of revealing the neurotic search for meaning, i.e. ego bolstering, in my own life, and not in providing evidence for secure footholds for a sense of egoic reality to be found in the mysterious unconscious. Whether whoever is reading this or not does this, or listening to this, I guess, or not, doesn't really matter. But I thought it best to emphasize that what I wrote means nothing to me now, inasmuch as there is no me or I anymore. Although I still find these topics interesting. Let's not lie about that. As is pointed out in your immortal reality, it is not the true talk that gets you home. For example, God is love. But the nitty-gritty details about the ego, which slowly give more and more space until being whole again. No longer separate. For those who have not looked closely at the ego, will never know. Know yourself. Ask, who am I? Who am I? There's so many peaceful and cool solutions that can be born from this perspective. Firstly, everyone who lives now doesn't need to suffer. At least not personally. Nothing personal, kid. Secondly, number 2, no conflict outside of mutually agreed upon recreation or play, e.g. sports, games, intercourse, etc., is necessary. Lastly, everything is chill. Now, things just won't change overnight. I ain't no fool. But time is now irrelevant. Whether it takes a year, 10 years, 50 years, 500 years, 5,000, 50,000 years, millions, billions, blah, lots of years, blah, uncountable number of years, doesn't change anything. But this is not like the brand of nihilism which says nothing matters because in 5 million years no one will exist / no one will exist who remembers us. This is also not the brand of eternalistic meaningness which says everything matters because there is some transcendental truth, values, God, mystery that is eternal and right. And this is also not the brand of hasty moralism that says, but these people are suffering now. How can you expect them to go on like this? How can you sit back and do nothing? Specifically, to the hasty moralist, the paradox is that by making a fuss of things, it ensures that suffering will never end. And, as unjust it surely is in some sense, that suffering seems to exist on an unfair stratified level. For example, think the rich versus poor moral argument. There is nothing to be done about it in a direct manner, or rather egoic manner. If the ego is let loose, then these matters might just resolve themselves, and maybe they won't. But the bigger picture is that personal suffering would come to an end. So even if stratified levels of pain existed, say due to socioeconomic differences in material wealth, no one would exist anymore to care about it. It seems then that the logical path from this less ego-centered paradigm would lead to a mutual desire to end or reduce unneeded pain caused by inefficiencies in largely ego-predicated economic and social systems. So the hasty moralist seems to delay the real work that needs to be done and seeks to put a tiny little band-aid on a huge gushing wound that is the neurotic human mind. So, like was said, this is not a race. It's a journey. Or it's really not anything we could talk about, but you get the point. And fortunately or unfortunately, this might mean it takes an unfathomable amount of time and contain unfathomable amounts of personal suffering and pain. This perspective takes all of this into account and accepts it. In recognizing the state of existence, this seems to be one of the best ways forward in addressing moral and social issues. It is a kind of love that does not seek or expect anything, and is long-lasting in waiting for its beloved to arrive at peace. This is simply the saying that nothing matters, and everything matters. No one exists, and people exist. There is no transcendental truth, and there is transcendental truth. And having expended the capacity of language, sit still in silent yet solid resolve to wait until a broken teacup becomes whole by itself. Waiting, of course, not meaning idleness and no action, but in the Taoist or Hindu sense of acting without acting, towards a less egoic state of existing for no effable reason at all. I'll see you guys next time. If you like this, you know the drill. Hit the yay button.
Do it!
Yeah. And if you didn't like it, hit the no button. See, no one ever says that. They just want you to say yay. It's some real good propaganda. But yeah, let me know what you think. Drop comments, and yeah, it's not exactly. I'm probably gonna do a video. I might not do a Life Further article. Maybe I will. Reviewing this book. It's really good. It made me really. I was like, whoa, what am I doing? And like, so it's like Jordan Bates was the first like. It was like the first wall, and it's like slammed me, and then this. Great times. So I'm probably going to spend more time on another video, but this, I just wanted to start doing this thing where I make a video and a podcast version of articles and stuff. Because I don't read blogs. I'm going to make content that I would want to consume, and for me, that is audio. I'm a big audio guy. I love podcasts. I've been listening to Alan Watts recently. Anyways, this is getting too long. So stay safe. Wash your hands. You know, sneeze into your elbow and stuff. What else? Don't go to large spaces. And yeah, don't worry. Be happy. I'll catch you next time. See you. It is a sexual desire that reaches to the very core of human nature, to the unconscious realms, and to the human need and desire for security and connection, as well as desire. Here we go from the top. Maybe I'll leave it. No, it should be.